There's no organization in this country that could do more for the struggling black man than the Black Muslim movement if it wanted to. But it has gotten into the possession of a man who's become senile in his old age and perhaps doesn't realize it. And then he has surrounded himself by his children who are now in power and want nothing but luxury and security and comfort and will do anything to safeguard their own interests. I feel responsible for having played a major role in developing a criminal organization. It was not a criminal organization at the outstart. It was an organization that had the power, the spiritual power, to reform the criminal. And this is what you have to understand.
Welcome to this new and important series, Diary of an Ex-Cult Member. I'm Abdul Haq Baker, author of the Cultish Tendencies and Chronicles of UK Salafism series. After being approached by a number of individuals from various parts of the world, this series is a culmination of some of them wanting to share their experiences of joining a particular cult and reasons for leaving it. This initial series will cover the cult that calls itself Salafi Publications. I have termed them Abu Khadijites, after its founder, Abdul Wahid Alam Abu Khadija. The authenticity of the accounts you are about to hear shall be easy to establish by the intricate details provided by the interviewees.
Rahmatullahi, Salahuddin.
Salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I want to revisit the first episode, but before doing so, my question will be to you concerning how you came to joining the Salafi Publications, aka Abu Khadijite cult.
Okay. I think I mentioned in a previous audio relating to going to Green Lane Masjid and praying Jum'ah, and then after the Jum'ah, you'd have Abu Talha, Abu Khadija with a swarm of people around them both asking them questions. And I kind of leaned in here and there listening to what was going on, but never really, took part in anything because sometimes it got a bit heated. So that was, my process, just starting to hear what they're saying and what the exchanges were between them and the community. And hearing some of the arguments, I'm like, okay, these guys are coming with proofs and evidences. They're quoting ayat, hadith, references, quoting scholars, more so than the people that they were speaking to. So that was kind of a selling point for me, like, oh, okay, these are the only guys that are kind of giving references and proofs for what they're saying. Even though I didn't verify them myself, it sounded credible,
Okay, now, so you were attracted to the lucidity, should I say, of their arguments and their responses to those who were questioning them. What attracted you to them in particular?
In particular was I've never seen a manifestation of the deen like that anywhere. But I live a bit outside the area where the Green Lane was. So obviously in the area I am, there's not really anything that resembles that. So going there and seeing all kinds of ethnicities, marriages, especially at their first conferences. So even though I started inclining to them out from the Green Lane debates, the thing that really sold it was the conferences, like how they're organized, how the reverts, all kinds of different colors and shades of people. And I've never seen anything like that. I'm sure that's pretty much a very common theme with everyone who was first. Why? Because you live in a community, if you're Black, or non-Asian, you tend to be culturally kind of in a kind of vacuum or alone. You go to the mosque, you pray, salams, and that's it. No one really cares to follow you up. So when you go to a conference, you see, oh, there's people my colour, my race. Oh, they're on the dean. Wow. Oh, okay. Look at the kids. Look at the women. Wow. You're not really. You're thinking to move into that community because there's people like you there, unlike where you're living currently. You know. So
No,
that was a big selling point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that's synonymous with many converts, and why they're attracted to Salafia, and they see that multicultural aspect that you've mentioned. Now, before I come back to how you grew in the ranks of this cult, or how you became more of an integral member, according to what you've informed me on already, I want to go back now, as I said, to the first episode, and I have a challenging question for you, in that you highlighted the upset of Germaine Lindsey at not receiving a reference or a tazkiyah from this cult to go to Medina. Now, the argument that can be leveled at you is, well, what's the issue with that? Because many organizations, if they don't know an individual, Muslim or non-Muslim organization, they will want references. Even with our jobs, we need references. So them saying they don't know him and wanting a reference, and him becoming distressed by that, why was that such an issue?
It's fair to say, with most of the masajid I've been to, they don't have such a extreme process. There is a fair reasoning to assess someone, their background, but they didn't extensively exhaust all means to help him in terms of, do you know anyone we can contact and speak to? Because if you did have anyone who was Sunni, they wouldn't accept that person's recommendation of Germaine because he's not with the cult. So you see, there's a domino effect irrespective of what Germaine gives. Because he's a new Muslim, he's not going to get that assistance. And it's an extreme approach. I think most Muslim organizations have a much more general, moderate approach to aiding a Muslim, and considering as a revert, there should be clearly an extensive an exertion to exhaust all means to try and help them. And the thing is, it's Medina University. It's an accessible university for everyone in the world, whatever your orientation. Just put whatever school of thought you follow from the Islamic schools of thought, or the different groups and sects that exist. They all have access. We know that there's teachers who the cult label as sururis, kutubis, teachers within Medina University who follow what the cult would consider to be deviant or erroneous. And then we have students there who are from the Sufiya and other groups and sects within Islam who have entered Medina University. So Medina University themselves are not so extreme in enabling Muslims of whatever background to access their university to seek knowledge. So if a revert lives in an area that has a mosque that he culturally can't identify with, and no one really knows him because of language and cultural barriers, and he's isolated, and he goes to a conference, he has no means of getting a recommendation other than who they see apparently, because his hometown is not very. There's not many Muslim organizations that are that organized to be able to give him reference, and they're not. They didn't take the time to get to know the person. So what does one do in a situation as a revert to get a recommendation? The process is very, very stringent in the cult and very, very harsh. And it should have been more moderate in considering his circumstances, i.e., sit down with the brother, have some food, find out his background, his details, ask him some questions, and then once you get a general overview of who he is, you may be able to help him. You may find out that he knows someone that's common to you both, but there was none of this process to help him to exhaust all avenues. There's no doubt when Abu Hakim himself applied for Medina University, the conditions to get in were nowhere near resembling the cult extremism of a brother just seeking a recommendation. it would have been far more easier to access Medina University, and Abu Hakim knows this himself very well. So for the cult now to make it so stringent and so stern and difficult and extreme, it's not like Germaine Lindsey was wanting to marry one of the cult sisters or asking for a job within the cult or a position. He wanted to access a university that should be accessible to the whole world, which it is for Muslims. Not an exclusive club, but only if you're in with the cult, then they'll help you get into Medina University. This is counter to the open door policy that Medina University has with its general checks, and there's no doubt Abu Hakim himself would not have responded well to being treated like that for asking for a recommendation to get to Medina University if he was in Germaine Lindsey's shoes at the time. Other mosques don't employ this harsh and extreme way of assessing and determining if a person's suitable to go to Medina University. There's a way more moderate way of doing this and approaching this, no doubt. Germaine Lindsey wanted to go to Medina University. It's not part of the cult organization. It's a world-recognized institution for seeking knowledge, learning various sciences of the religion. And this is accessible to everyone and anyone. And they don't just have to be Salafi, but it's like the cult are restricting access to Medina University only for those who are Salafis, and this is incorrect, as Abu Hakim, as I explained, Abu Hakim did with the process, the application process with the admin, to only filter through Salafis who were with the cult, or so-called Salafis who were with the cult. Or the Muslim who's trying to go to an institution that's world recognized so they can seek knowledge. No organization has the right to restrict access to reverts or those who have started practicing, doesn't matter who. If they're Muslim, if there's a reasonable way of checking their background, and we have to make the differentiation between those whose backgrounds can be checked who are born Muslim, raised in a Muslim area, known in the community, and those who've recently reverted, who don't have that network of people to be able to help them, because people are sometimes the communities have they're not able to interact and follow up new reverts to be able to assess and get to know them. And this is why they end up falling into the hands of extremist groups and organizations. It's not like, for example, if someone went to Medina to seek a recommendation to get to Medina University, they'd have to prove their loyalty to Abu Sama and sign up to, complete loyalty to Green Lane and show fanaticism to them. Green Lane wouldn't employ such a harsh and restrictive approach. There's clearly a way more balanced approach to deal with the issue of getting a recommendation and to determine if a person can get to Medina University, being aware of the condition of the revert and finding out and speaking to him and assessing his reasons why it's difficult for him to give a reference, or, eliminating, exhausting all means, as I mentioned. The scholars in history didn't restrict access to knowledge in this harsh and extreme manner, because if someone has access to knowledge, whatever their background or their intent or agenda, that knowledge can change their condition. As we know, Sheikh Muqbil didn't have a restriction as to who came and studied with him in his camp in Damaj, rahimahullah, and he had an open door policy, of course, with the regular checks that were nowhere near as extreme as a cult. But many reverts have good accounts of being in Sheikh Muqbil's camp and how welcoming he was to the reverts, and how he dedicated and despite how busy he was, he made time for the reverts to get to know them and ask about their condition, and he would pool money for them to help them to be able to continue in their studies, rahimahullah. This is a clear difference between the ulama, the real scholars, and there's a clear difference here between Sheikh Muqbil's example and the cult example. We also have the example of Sheikh bin Baz, rahimahullah, and how well known he was around the world and accessible. And upon his death, the amount of people from different groups and orientations that came to to his funeral and who recounted stories of his generosity, his kindness and his mercy, not just because they were Salafi. Sheikh bin Baz's magnanimous character did not restrict himself only to one orientation or group of Muslims. Surely if the cult followed the example of the scholars and they claim their connectedness to the scholars and to knowledge, they should also follow an example of how the scholars deal with fellow Muslims. And we know the Prophet ﷺ said, make things easy for the people and do not make things difficult. The cult were highly unreasonable. I understand that checks have to be done, but there's a moderate way of going about it, considering reverts and the potential sensitive background a person's come from, that they need a bit more consideration when dealing with them. Had a measured approach been employed in the case of Germaine Lindsey, with balance and consideration to who he was and his background, it would have had a much more positive effect on him, even within the cult with all their rigorous checks, etc. Those who climb the hierarchy of the cult, we have amongst them, as we know, many of the list of crimes that they've committed at the very top of the cult, the elite of the cult. You know, we have people who steal dawah funds, we have people who commit sexual abuse with those who are in their care and their trust, and a long list of crimes committed in the cult, even though they've got in past all the checks. I would hope that the listeners would try and empathise and put themselves in Germaine Lindsey's shoes had that happened to them.
Cross-referencing. They didn't give the opportunity to say, bring a reference from people that we may know who know you, or become part of the community and join our classes so we can become familiar with you before we give a reference or tazkiyah. None of that was offered.
Exactly, not at all, not at all. Because to Germaine, you have to remember, to him it was, I'm a Muslim. He doesn't understand their mentalities. They're in that club or that cult, and they got in through that process, or they know people. But to Germaine, it's like, I'm a Muslim. I've heard about Salafi. I'm interested in Dawah Salafiyya. What's the problem? So he didn't understand the reason for this barrier between him going and getting a recommendation and going to Medina, because they didn't explain it to him. They just said, we don't know you, we can't give you a recommendation, repeating it over and over. And he's gone through the reasoning, but I'm Salafi, I want to go and study, which any general new Muslim would say. You know, it's sad that being a Muslim is not enough, because even, let's say, if you did have some basic doubts, surely going to Medina University would have helped him clarify where you got the scholars, you got the best people. If someone's got confused issues, they'll be rectified at that university. So my problem with the narration was, what's the understanding of that? How do the scholars extract? Is it only to be used for Salafis? Or did Umar state that narration on the basis is only for checking for Salafis? How's it applied? What's the process of it? Because you have to remember, it's being taken from the elite, filtered down to the mid-level, to the lower, and everyone's got a different understanding of it and how they implement it. Not clarified to Germaine, and then they literally applied it without between the time of Umar and 2002.
Yeah, I'm aware. I think, if I can interject, I am aware that they have and we've seen evidence of that they used to have their Salafi football. The individuals could not come and play football unless there was tazkiyahs or references from other Salafis who said that these individuals were Salafi according to their ilk to even play football. So I'm aware of that wider context, and this is why I'm asking that question. I want to ask in the same realm now, because it still relates to the Germaine Lindsey and wider picture. Was there a gatekeeping or any sort of controlling of individuals who would be put through or applied to Medina from the cult? Was anyone controlling that process from Birmingham or any of their students in Medina?
Yes, definitely. I got confirmation of this from a number of brothers who filled in applications for Medina, and they were basically sent to Abu Hakim, and after him speaking to them, checking their upon the manhaj, checking with the Ikhwan and all that kind of stuff, he then would either make sure that he goes to the university and processes those by speaking to the admin of Medina University, because at the time, and this is what one of the brothers who put his application through, Abu Hakim took his application in person as well, and the admin, according to Abu Hakim, was proper Salafi, right? So this admin would just say to Abu Hakim, who do you select from the UK to go through? And Abu Hakim would say, this application, and that's how it would go through. But one time, eventually Abu Hakim, when they changed the admin and he wasn't aware of it, a lot of the students stopped getting through to Medina because the admin had changed now, according to Abu Hakim, to an Ikhwani. So that would now, but this is how the cult were getting in their followers into Medina to build their power base. As we know, Abu Hakim frequently told brothers that the Ikhwanis, once the students have done their first year at Medina University, the Ikhwanis would approach them and say, when you go back to your location, can you come and give dawah at this masjid, this organization will give you some money, blah, blah, blah. And Abu Hakim himself and the cult employed the same process to sift out those who want to be in the cult or who want to come back and basically fulfill cult objectives.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is it can be validated because, and that's the reason why I asked you the question, because I know of former students in Medina from London, and a discussion with one of them not so long ago, he mentioned this to me in passing, that he used to speak with Abu Hakim, that's Bilal Paul Davis, for those who don't know, and he had a CV of an individual, and Abu Hakim told him, he's not from the Maktaba, so I'm not going to put it through. There's no point in you giving me this CV because I'm not going to put it through because he's not from the Maktaba. So that actually validates what you've just narrated here now, that there was a gatekeeping sort of mechanism that the cult would only filter through Western applicants from the UK who were with them or who were sympathetic to them.
Yes.
Is there any way of you knowing or explaining how Abu Hakim was able to have such a relationship with the admin of Medina University? Because their complicity in this would have been a problem as well, wouldn't it?
Based upon what I was told by Abu Hakim, he had a personal relationship with a lot of the people who process the application, and he, according to his own statement, that Medina was all the people running Medina were mostly Salafi, so we can get in a lot of Salafis, and then because of the Fali Habbi and the fallout of these kind of issues, there was a realization that a lot of the students were within Medina falling into argumentation, differences, and it was coming from a particular orientation. These events are all known that occurred in Medina between, we know the affair of Fali Habbi declaring free minor students of knowledge to be innovators. And all these arguments went back and forth. Basically, it went up to the upper levels of Medina University. So the changes were made. And according to Abu Hakim, Ikhwanis were replaced by clear Salafis in Medina who were facilitating the process of getting more cult members into Medina.
And they didn't know they were cult members all coming from Salafi publications, am I right? Or did they know this?
they did notice at certain levels, particularly the ones that Abu Hakim knew, where he was the one who would make sure the applicant would get through. Like once Abu Hakim selects applicants, it wasn't just a 50-50 chance. It was a definite that person's getting through.
Let me rephrase that question. So,
okay.
So the administration, did they know they were all coming from the cult via Abu Hakim, or did they think he's just selecting a wide swathe of Salafis from the UK?
Yes, they knew they were coming from the cult, but then that protocol changed. The admin basically said to Abu Hakim, look, we can't have all students just from Birmingham. You need to mix up, because Medina University wants students all around the world from different areas for the dawah to spread. So what you need to do is tell your members in Birmingham to apply from locations outside of Birmingham if they've got relatives there, etc., etc. So even though that was the case, it still made sure people from the cult would get into Medina. They just found a way around it because the admin had told specifically that's the way around it. They had a limitation on to how many people were getting through from Birmingham.
And you heard a lot of this directly from Abu Hakim, am I correct?
Yes.
So
and other brothers, yeah.
Okay, this brings me to the next question, and I think this will be the conclusive aspect of this phase of the discussion and questions I have for you, because we're going to move on to some other aspects regarding the cult in the next episodes. But I want you to tell me the fact that you've explained about Abu Hakim and you getting this information from him. How was it that you were able to rise in the ranks of the cult to be able to get privy to this information and some of the other information you're going to disclose in subsequent episodes?
Right. It's like a web. It's an organized web. You won't see it when you first join the cult. You're just in the mindset of brothers, the deen. You don't realize there's an actual organized network. At all levels. It's not just application processes. It's marriage. It's who gets into the dawah, who gets to do security, who's the sisters who are going to do the lesson, who's going to teach in the school. It permeates through all levels. There's an absolute filtering, cult control. You can't just get in just by being a Muslim or just a general Salafi. You have to be, the higher up you get, you have to be clearer and clearer and clearer. That's why they had that rhetoric in the early 2000s of Salaf, clear Salafi, clear Salafi. It was an actual policy they had. So in terms of me getting into the upper rankings, there's many variables to it. There's one as if you're silent and you go along with the cult, you can climb through the rankings because they take your silence as approval and acceptance and willing to go along with the cult. If you manifest some kind of defense of the cult in front of them, someone that they're debating with or getting angry in defense of someone who's spoken ill of Abu Khadija, this is a sign of the loyalty you have towards the dawah, as they call it. But obviously it's loyalty to the personalities. Then you have constantly, if you come around them and you make an effort to be around them constantly and show this need for them and dependency, and then they start to look at your use in the cult. So if you're academic, then they'll find out what kind of qualifications, specialization you've got that can benefit and advance them as an entity. If you're an roadman or street guy. You have a position in terms of, like you have with members like Akil, for example, who are the security apparatus or the dawah. You get put in ranking based on your usefulness to the cult.
Can I interject there though? But
yes.
again, that's something that will be standard of other organisations.
Yes.
So what? Let me ask you this then. So, what was it in particular that raised you? What was it that they identified in you to bring you into the inner circles? And then the question will be, for those who are going to be doubting and questioning, okay, what is the evidence? What sort of example can you give to show or establish that you were part of the inner circle? Obviously, without disclosing your identity, and this is why we've your identity. And I reiterate for the viewer that this is not hiding identity from fear. It's clear from what I know of you already and the examples you've given that that's not an issue. But can you give an example of what being in the inner circle looks like that will resonate to those in the cult to know that you were on the inner circles?
Okay. I had a background in organized crime, you could say, and being I have a certain reputation that kind of filtered through into the cult ranks, you know, as being a brother who's capable, whatever. And so because of that, I started to quickly climb in positions that I know I wasn't suitable for. So I'd be sitting in, for example, meetings with Abu Junaid. I didn't know how I was being groomed, obviously, if you could put it that way. I'm just thinking I'm with the brothers. These are the good brothers. These are the ones who are going to help me get strong on the dawah. So you're in that, and you're in that, and you have. If people want to confirm, I was definitely there. There's a clear, very personal conversation that regularly happens with Abu Junaid and Abu Khadija, and Abu Junaid has a particular name for him. He used to call him Walam, and Abu Khadija would get angry at this, but Abu Junaid would clearly state that he'd call him that because Abu Khadija was prone to giving fatwa very quickly without comprehending a matter properly. So he gave him that nickname on that basis. And I know Abu Junaid or Abu Khadija hearing this will know that's a fact. There's no one else, unless you're actually in the inner circle, would know that. I remember Abu Junaid's wife in particular, she used to cook West Indian food, and that would be sold. She'd cook it at a certain time of day, so it would only be available for a limited time, and she would sell it. And that was before he set up his premises for selling, you know, UEs, etc., etc. So that's just an example of some of the stuff that I know that no one else would know. But I climbed through the rankings not because of my knowledge and my any type of, you know, like how someone would climb in terms of studying or other proofs. Normal people rise in the rankings of other organizations. It was purely because of my background and my usefulness in terms of protecting. And I didn't know that at the time, but eventually I realized I was going around with the elite of the cult quite often, like the security guard, the bodyguard. You know, obviously I thought I was just hanging with the good brothers, but when situations used to get a bit hostile or tense, I would loyally step in and intervene and check the brother who was trying to have a grievance with any of the cult elite, and that would give me that badge of this guy, he's with us, he's down. You know, for them it was proof of my loyalty, and that loyalty would be rewarded with marriage, position, going to Abu Khadija's house, going to other members' house, going to Abu Hakim, being very, having their phone numbers, and riding in cars with them, having a very personal interaction that clearly other people in the cult didn't have. So you get to know things that no one else would know. Could I quickly add something,
Yes.
Abdul Haq? There's a video on YouTube made by a brother called Sajid Lippam, and he mentions when he first went to Medina University, an account that's about 16 minutes long, and he explains what happened to him when he joined Medina University later in the 2000s, and the kind of bullying and side picking that he was forced into as a new revert, which involved members of the cult trying to make him, don't go with these brothers, don't go with that brother, come to us. And there was a clear, proving what we mentioned earlier, there's a selection process and the filtration process to join the cult, pick a side. Once you join Medina University, and Sajid Lippam, and he confirms that even later on down the line in the 2000s when he went to Medina.
We will include that excerpt there in that, and I also want to include, to reinforce what you've said again, there's a recording in London where you can hear a bit of a kerfuffle taking place, and Abu Sufyan, who's ill at the moment, and may Allah cure him and give him ease, Ameen, was with the cult up until quite recently. You can hear him shouting in this incident at someone, and he continually asks them, "Are you with us? Are you with us? Are you with us?" Now, that was in question to being with the cult, am I right?
That's correct. Because in the early audios, from the tapes from the 90s, Abu Sufyan says, when he was lambasting Sohaib Hassan, "We're not calling you to us." But then when he had the issue with the Alam Rockers, as they called them, four Pakistani brothers from Alam Rock, once he got to the end of triggering them and shouting at them and calling them cockroaches and snakes and all these kind of things, they eventually got agitated, and an interaction where Abu Sufyan stepped down, and I was witness to that, and he went up to them, and it nearly got into violence. A brother called Haider was really to punch these Alam Rockers, and Abu Sufyan, the brother was saying, I'm Salafi, and Abu Sufyan says, "You Salafi? Are you with us? Are you with us?" Clearly contradicting what he said in the 90s, that they're not calling to us, but then he's saying, "Are you with us?"
Jazakallah khair, Salahuddin, for that and for the clarification. We're concluded at this particular point, and I'm sure as we have scheduled that there's going to be more information and details that you want to discuss and disclose with us in the subsequent episodes, inshallah. So thank you very much for that again, and to the listener and viewer, thank you. And this will be where we conclude this particular part of episode 2. There's another segment of episode 2 to come, and you will see that being displayed and shared very shortly.
Thank you for listening to this episode. For more information on the cult, please refer to Cultish Tendencies and another series conducted by our colleagues in the US entitled The Night Shift. For a more scholarly reference on the cult, please also refer to Sheikh Wasiullah Abbas's narratives concerning them. Anyone who's interested in sharing their experiences with this cult, please contact the link below, and rest assured that what you provide will be dealt with in the strictest confidence. Thank you once again for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.